who are gonna go are gonna be so brave.
I'm excited to see someone walk on the moon.
Maybe someday I can go to space. We
are
the
the
Artemis
Artemis generation.
Hello. Those are my two kiddos, Addie and Miles. And I hope that they'll get to see this someday. And welcome to another live stream summer social with Dr. Thomas Zurbuchen, the Associate Administrator of NASA. Welcome, welcome. You are a busy man this week, no doubt.
Oh, it's a wonderful time. You know, we last time we chatted was just ahead of the JWST early picture release, right? And now we're talking about this other milestone, both of these just milestones we've been waiting for many, many years. So yes, it's an amazing time.
Yeah, absolutely. As a reminder to anyone tuning in and streaming, you can comment in the chats. I am watching them over on the side of my screen. So this is where my eyes are looking to. When you see me looking away, I am looking at the chats, and we are welcoming any questions you may have. We're going to be talking about SLS and not so much the rocket, but the Artemis mission and obviously our return to the moon. And if you haven't watched this live stream series before, let me just refresh your memory a little bit about Dr. Z. He grew up in Switzerland, and he has always been a keen observer of the natural world from an early age. His curiosity led him to pursue degrees in physics, and he has served on and led innovative scientific teams that have helped enlarge our perspective on the solar system and the universe. So you have a really, really cool job at NASA. I mean, I might be biased in thinking that, I don't know. But I wanted to actually just first start by asking you kind of a personal, what are you most looking forward to about Artemis 1 launching? Like what is something kind of personal that you'd like to share that you're looking forward to about that?
Look, I mean, for me, I would say I'm the oldest of the people on Earth that don't remember Apollo. I grew up, I have no recollection of Apollo. The first recollection I have was that mission when the Soviets and the Americans coupled two spacecraft together. And I remember how impressed I was. I was in this Swiss mountain village. We didn't have a TV for many reasons, but I was at the neighbor's place and I saw this live stream, kind of grainy live stream of the Soviets and the Americans coming together in space. There's just some initial ideas. First of all, it was about what you could do with technology. It's incredible. You can fly in space and take these two spacecraft that are built on different continents, and at the end you put them together, and then the Americans and the Soviets came and hugged each other. I of course grew up in Switzerland. That's where my accent is from, like you said, and of course we were living in fear of the Soviets because of the nuclear threat on the other side of the wall. They were only just a few hundred miles away from where I grew up. And having this kind of document of peace kind of coming together in space, that, two countries shaking their hands, kind of hugging each other. They had trained together, by the way. Of course, they knew each other, kind of up there in space. I think for me, it's just something that I think incredibly beautiful, kind of about human exploration. So what I'm really excited about then with Artemis 1 is it's the journey to getting forward to the moon, a new moon, that's very different than a moon that I would argue that the Apollo astronauts went to, because of course it changed. We changed our entire understanding of it. So we go back forward to that moon. We go together as a whole community, a commercial international community. And Artemis 1, if you want, is kind of the clarion, call of that journey now starting. And so for me, it's a very moving thing, just like your children. They're cute, by the way, very cute children. And thanks for sharing that. It's this kind of really kind of coming together again as nations and doing something that's beautiful.
Yeah. I love the way that you tied all of that in together with it's a human effort, and it's the human drive of collaboration that is going to take us back to the moon, just not one physical location on this one planet. It's all of us around the globe. And something I think about a lot is the moon is everybody's moon. We all look at the same moon, no matter where we are on planet Earth. Little quick side note, I just wanted to point out, I don't know if you caught it. It's a really quick flash in that book or in the video, but my son is holding a book, and I'm serious. I randomly pulled this book out, and it was on Theodore Roosevelt, and on the back it says "To Dare Mighty Things," and I was like, what were the odds that I found that book? So I shot him with that. Let's talk about some of the preparation and what you have been going through these past couple of days for this upcoming launch. You were mentioning to me before we started this live stream that you have been in quite a lot of meetings pertaining to flight readiness reviews. Would you like to speak a little bit about what that means and what that means for you?
Yeah, for every mission that we're launching, there's 2 reviews that are there. The first one is the flight readiness review. The second one is what most missions call launch readiness review. The launch readiness review basically says, what's the weather? Is everything fine? Let's go or not go. So that's happening like 24 hours, 48 hours before launch, so that we have not done that. The flight readiness review is kind of a scary review. I want to tell you, you sit there and you're talking about everything you should worry about. and so basically everything that's there, we call those risks. When we talk about risks, we're not thinking about things that we don't know. It's things that we know that have some uncertainty with it. There are risks that relate to, let's call, orbital debris. Coming back with Artemis, kind of go out, come back, and sweep through kind of a debris field and go out. Of course, we hope nothing happens, and with a high likelihood it will not, but it is a risk that is out there. So there's risks out there on this mission. And I would say, in my program, we've landed on Mars with Perseverance, which is a very risky thing. We talked about the 7 minutes of there. We've of course deployed the James Webb Space Telescope, with 25 days at the edge, right? I would say the risk of this, Artemis 1 mission is about the same size, right? So this is not kind of a low risk mission. Just start. Basically, any first rocket flight has a 20 to 50% or so likelihood of not working. So we're going to try to beat that odds. By the way, NASA has beat that odd before with a shuttle. The first shuttle flight worked, right? So it's a totally new rocket. So we're going to want to beat that odd. But, and I think what's really amazing, you sit in these rooms with these amazing people. Just think of like 50 people in a room, and all of them going through and basically saying, here is the risk of Orion. Here are the risks of the rocket. Here are the risk of the system overall. Here's environmental risks. Here are kind of engineering risks that we've accepted. And we do that for 11 hours. And at the end, of course, there's a poll that says, after you've seen all these risks, are we ready to proceed? And of course, you saw the press. It was, everybody said, yeah, we're ready to proceed, as did I. But I just want you to know, this is, I wish your listeners, could have, in some of these cases, listened in, because so often it just looks like, oh, it's just a rocket that goes. By the way, every rocket, even the ones that, routine SpaceX rocket or United Launch Alliance rocket, we also do a launch readiness review. It's closer to 2 hours there, but there's always risks. A valve that got stuck somewhere. It's like, will the valve work? Well, it needs to work. for the mission to go. So that's what I did. And then, of course, I'm getting ready for the ramp up for the whole launch preparations, and then the launch readiness review, which has a slightly different name here. And then, of course, being part of that historic moment.
Yeah, and looking back at Apollo versus Artemis, I did think about that as well, that the risk of the debris field is a totally different thing than when they had to think about when they launched Apollo. And that is, I think, a very valid point, that we've already sent, things to Mars, and we've sent things through that, and they made it, and there is a risk there, but it's no different, the odds, than sending those other spacecraft. So there is a risk, but I think NASA's pretty good at handling risk and rising to that challenge. So what would you like to say? This is also sort of a personal thing. What would you like to say also to the people who have finally got us to this point, that have all the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have worked to finally get us to this point? Because, we're talking about this risk and this big thing that we're doing, and yet there are so many little pieces and parts and people who worked on those things. Is there anything you'd like to say to those people as a I don't know, a thank you, essentially?
Right. I mean, for me, look, for many people, I'm here in a room at Kennedy. I just walked in and I looked at the rocket standing on the pad. Wow. You've seen the pictures, so I looked at them. And, for me, many people just see a rocket. I see the tens of thousands of people that got us there, right? And each one of them individually, each one of them, put their best in there. Some of these people are, frankly, incredibly capable. Some of them, many of them are worked really, really hard, and all of them became part of a team. And, it's like in sports, having many good athletes is not the same as having a great team, right? What we need to do to make these missions successful is to have a great team. And so for me, I just want you to know, as I sat through these 11 plus hours of, flight readiness review, I just really was so hugely impressed by that team. And I went and thanked some of the leaders and just said, hey, look, I just see how much personal effort you've put in this, and, taken time away, sometimes from your families, from your friends, and you made this your goal, a goal that is so important to all of us. We're just so deeply grateful. So that for me is like, space missions are about teams of individuals, dedicated individuals, and they're diverse teams, by the way, very different backgrounds, and some of them from Europe. There were people with accents in there without American passports like me, that because of the European service module, right, attached to the Orion, there's important contributions from Europe. And so just, hey, thanks to that team.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm certain there are so many people that are just holding their breath, and they're doing so on a level that us who haven't worked on this rocket or this mission are not. So I have a friend who is also one of my co-hosts, and he has quite a few questions that he pre-submitted. And so this is my segue reminder to anyone watching right now, please submit questions in the comments, because I have a lot of questions. And so does Benjamin. He says so many questions. Hold on. He is a really good friend of mine. He says, "Where do I get that shirt, Dr. Z?"
Any NASA store has that shirt. But there's frankly, I need to get an Artemis shirt here. And my daughter wants one. She just went to college and said, "Hey, send me a pack of them. I want to give it to people up and down the hallway." And so I already sent her a James Webb Space Telescope picture for her dorm room. So yes, anywhere, any gift shop, there's e-gift shops, you can get those shirts.
So there you go, Ben. Go to the NASA gift shop. So I have a question. We just learned recently where Artemis 3, where some of the landing sites potentially may be. So I wanted to know, will Artemis 1 do some orbits over these landing sites? Is that part of the flight path for this first test of the Orion capsule?
So it is absolutely true that for us to select the actual landing site, we need flyovers, and we actually have flyovers already. All the pictures you've seen of those landing sites come from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which is our spacecraft. It's the most productive lunar science machine ever built. It's been out there in orbit. It's in far extended missions. By the way, there's also small satellites on board that will also go fly over them. Luna HMAP being one of them. There's others that will look at also the space environment. But our Artemis, the Orion capsule will not in this flight. Kind of the way the orbit is set up, it will not fly over there. It's that the trick is really to stress that the goal here is to stress the Orion capsule, the whole mission, to their limit. I mean, what we're doing is deliberately pushing to make sure that it's safe later for humans. No, it will not fly over the poles, but trust me, we'll keep flying over it, image it, and look at it in many different ways to really make sure we get the maximum science back.
Yeah, that actually was a question someone had asked me. How will NASA continue testing to validate that future flights with human passengers will be safe? And as you just said, that we're going to be pushing this to its limits, which we've done with, testing the SLS rocket in the past. We, pushed the limits of that till it broke, essentially. And so in addition to this Artemis 1 testing, how else are there other ways that we are preparing for the safety of future crews for, I guess, not even the launch, but also for operations on the moon?
Yeah, so for me, the way you should think about it, we're already doing that. We're in the space station up there with astronauts for over 20 years. Many people who are calling in here, their whole lives, Americans were in orbit in the space station and learning how to work and live in space, so for me, we've already done a lot of it. What we're going to do is really focus on the engineering system. And I want you to know there's a lot of work that happens between Artemis 1 and Artemis 2. The risk with which we fly here, ones that we looked at at the flight readiness review, is not acceptable for the risks that we want humans to fly with. We all know that. So Artemis 1 is a really important part there. But there's going to be ground-based tests, there's going to be engineering tests. But then in addition to that, there's also going to be, in addition from the science side, kind of environmental measurements. There's CubeSats out there that are focused on the space environment. By the way, we have two spacecraft in a long orbit around the moon right now that are looking at the space environment. That's radiation that, of course, if you're in low Earth orbit, is mostly shielded, or much of it is shielded both by the Earth underneath you, no radiation's coming up or very little, and also by the magnetic field on top of you. Once you go to the moon, you're past that. So the radiation environment is really different. So we're going to continue to move and gain all the knowledge we can using every single asset, because what we want to do is be as safe as we can with the astronauts once we're going there with Artemis 2 and then, of course, Artemis 3.
And this almost must answer this question that someone else also had asked me, is why are there so many years in between each of our Artemis missions? And it's, I would assume, to collect as much of the data from each one as possible, to be very intentional and thoughtful about what we're doing with each next mission.
Yeah, and I think you also need to recognize, right, kind of the Space Launch System, the rocket that's standing out there, is a system that has really specifically built for this kind of application. And so it's not built for the same kind of applications like, for example, our good commercial partners, SpaceX, ULA, Rocket Labs, all these Blue, all these commercial partners. This is a very specific application. So it's built with kind of the whole engineering environment and timing that is consistent with what we think the demand is going to be, right? So we don't think we need 10 of those rockets each year, or even 3 of those rockets. That means that it's built in a way that is kind of consistent with what we believe the demand is, right? So sometimes, of course, you're getting all excited. You wish you could go faster, but those decisions are made. They're really intrinsic part of the design as it's built. Again, this is not for mass production. It really is this specific task to take humans out of low Earth orbit, go towards the moon, and then towards Mars.
Yes. And that's where I wanted to focus this conversation now on. We're going to the moon. Someone wanted to know how many missions do you think it's going to take to get Gateway built? I don't know if that's something you can really specifically answer, but Gateway obviously is a key component to getting a base on the moon, and the base on the moon is a key component to then getting us out to Mars. I guess the question everyone is like, how long will this take? How soon are we going to get to do this? You know, it's so exciting to have these the cusp of this so close, but you know, not totally sure what exactly the timeline is, and so I can see why so many people have asked me questions kind of along timelines.
So look, I mean, the initial gateway launches in late 24.
Okay.
And we have we're already working on the second piece behind it, right? So there's 2 launches that we already have there. And I just wanted to know that, you know, as the international community is coming together, and I want to stress yet again that also the gateway is very much an international endeavor. You know, this interstellar outpost, if you want, interplanetary outpost away from the moon, kind of a deep space station, kind of the likes of which, really is a good model for kind of the type of means that you would have going towards Mars, right? So that we have 2 launches scheduled, but I would not be surprised if more are coming. We're going to go visit them, bring astronauts there that will be there. Frankly, I want you to know, we are building right now kind of a space weather package on top of that initial gateway launch. And then it's going to be there because what we want to learn is how to measure locally space weather using radiation and the plasma sensors, assimilate them into forecasting, and again, help using the knowledge by the heliophysics community that are focused on space weather. And then, of course, our cross-agency partner, NOAA, and so forth, to really bring that knowledge together and do the best to protect our astronauts. So we're already doing that. Science is part of that along the way. So I've already confirmed those instruments, and so I know, I mean, I've looked at some of the hardware that's already going to be on the gateway in 24.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. That's so true about what, like, science is. So much of space exploration are like moving puzzle pieces, and then when something clicks into the right place, it alters so much of the other part of the puzzle. A great example of that would be how well oh my gosh, I'm sorry, my brain is like shot right now. Perseverance helicopter. I know it's Ingenuity. Thank you. Yeah. How well Ingenuity performed has completely changed the idea of how sample return missions might be, and that's just a great example of how, having outposts in space, how we start continuing through this Artemis mission, how that might affect how we get to Mars based on what happens over these next missions.
Yeah. Do you mind if I just riff on that topic? Because I really believe it's such a profound insight. Many people talk about planning, and I think planning is important. Plans are usually not very useful, but planning is important. But I think what I really want to focus on, and what is as important or more important, is learning, right? Kind of, for me, depending on how this Artemis 1 flight goes and what we're learning from it, it surely will have an impact how the future goes.
Sure.
Right? Just the way Ingenuity has impacted how we're dealing with Mars sample return. By the way, the success of Perseverance and the success of Curiosity, now that we have all systems for a year or so on Mars, have also impacted how we think about the reliability of that system. We had too many variables. We couldn't have possibly started a plan with that in mind where we're ending up. But we're learning, and we're learning not just alone with NASA, with our international partners, but also with our commercial partners. So again, as we're making progress with our commercial partners, these plans are adjusting. And I think that's the right way of doing this. We should not be, only walking in straight lines. That is not a good way of climbing up mountains.
Yes. I've always heard it phrased as course correction.
Yep.
When you're not going in the right direction, you just need to stop, evaluate, and course correct. I have a question that is kind of in line with course correction. So we remember when Neil landed on the moon and he had to manually fly down because he had to course correct essentially to land. There, apparently, according to they read that there will be 2 lunar landers, an automated one and a piloted one. I don't know if you can confirm that. And if by piloted, is that like someone actually flying it? Is that what that person is understanding?
So there's a lot of work that's happening right now. Frankly, there was an update just this week in a science meeting that made quite a lot of news as to how we're planning the the lunar landers, which of course is done in commercial partnership with SpaceX. And the question about what the human role is in it, in landing and so forth, in the presence of lidars that we now have and terrain relative navigation, and robotics we now have, is certainly under discussion. So it's without a doubt, what we're going to do is the first way we're landing is robotically, because we want to make sure that robots could land. So without a doubt, we're going to do that. We would want to do that no matter what, right? By the way, we're going to land on the moon robotically multiple times before we go with humans. And most of them is science and technology objectives, but we're going to do that. And then when we land with humans, we will know what the role is of the human based on everything we learned. And without a doubt, we're going to, who's ever flying down there will have the experience of being able to intervene. But, is it going to be needed? Is it secondary, primary? My guess is the robotic, knowledge that we've gotten in the last 50 years has dramatically changed how we fly. I mean, just look how we're going to the space station, what the astronauts are doing, what they're not doing.
Yeah.
That, as compared to, the shuttle, what it used to be. So yes, there will be robotics, and I'm sure there's human functions also, but the degree of which is being, analyzed as we go.
That was kind of what I was thinking as well, because I mean the GPS and AI and the technology for things to be able to guide themselves is so good on Earth already. I can't imagine that it would be that much different on the moon. Benjamin, again, who is a very kind supporter of this live stream right now, says, speaking of time between missions, once testing is completed and we're flying regularly, which it sounds like there's going to be quite a few launches in between the Artemis launches as well, how much time will it be between the crewed flights? Do we have an idea of how frequently we plan to be then going, back to the moon? I think in my mind, it's sort of like just getting back that first time is sort of that big pinnacle. And then my vision is sort of like, and I don't know. I hadn't thought of that. So I think it's a good question.
So we're planning right now, kind of, Artemis 1, 2, 3 is until we're there with, the first woman and first person of color back on the, on the surface of the moon. Again, we're going to a new celestial body because of the knowledge we gain, but also with different people. I just want you to know, we're bringing all of humanity with us, right? Which is so critical. I just really look forward to that. So as we go forward, we're looking at, Artemis 4 to 6, and there's a number of plans that are out there. Go Google them. And you see that what people have done is talked about kind of yearly or every other year type of rhythm. I want to put a big asterisk to that. Suppose we have a commercial capability that allows us to kind of lift faster and go beyond that. Surely we will have a national discussion and an international discussion about how often we do that. I would not be surprised. I know there's a big discussion going on in Europe right now, is whether or not they should human rate one of their launch vehicles. So they too could bring kind of humans into space, whether it's to the station or eventually to deeper into space. And of course, there's other countries that are thinking about too. And so for me, I think this kind of rhythm that is lined out there is very much has a certain set of boundary conditions in mind. But boundary conditions, I doubt, will be correct in 5 years.
So I'm guessing your job is a little bit technically challenging in the fact that it's as clear as mud when it comes to what the next steps forward are and what that really looks like. And I feel like that should be an inspirational quote somewhere, like plans are you have to plan, but they don't work. Like plans are good, but they don't work. And it sounds like that's sort of similar to what your line of work is doing. All right, I have an interesting question. I don't know if I'll throw it at you, but we'll see. Someone wants to know about terraforming Mars. It's a little bit outside of, I think, your box, but it is something that obviously it's the stuff of science fiction almost, really, sure, of talking about that. And so to my understanding, it doesn't even seem quite possible at this point.
Yeah. So look, so Mars is a really incredible planet, right? It's a planet that's kind of in many ways is the closest to the Earth, and not only the interior of Mars. We just learned that with InSight, which is a mission that has been on Mars for a few years, and frankly is running out of steam as its solar panels are being coated with dust. But we learned that. We also learned from in the last 10, 15 years that Mars has a wet past, where water was flowing and standing on Mars. Frankly, where we are with Perseverance is a place where there used to be a kind of a stream, and also floods that came down that crater lake, and carried rocks into the plains, right? Just kind of in your mind, think of that place. So that's how it used to be. So terraforming, of course, is technology, use a type of technologies that are really changing the entire environment and are trying to kind of bring back that wet time period. Now, I just wanted to know, it is the stuff of science fiction, because before anybody is at Mars, this is all just, 5, miracles away or 10 miracles away, right? It's, I think scientifically, it's actually an interesting question whether it's possible. The science literature out there, with few exceptions, and by the way, there's not an agreement. I just want you to know, by the way, that's what's normal in science. Before there's multiple opinions. So the short answer is it's not easy to say whether it's possible. Right now, the prevalence is towards, hey, it's not really possible, even if you nuke whatever, water thing. I just want to know, I'm speaking for the agency, the NASA, the space agency here in the US. And I think the one thing I just want to point out that we're very much standing for respectful exploration too. So this is not one of those things that's on our minds. It's just, what we're trying to do is recognize that we're not the smartest humans that will ever live. And so what we're not going to do is destroy a whole environment for some kind of idea. We're trying to make sure that, and by the way, Americans have done that also on land. Here we have parks, nature parks, natural parks where we leave nature how it is. We want to also leave nature elsewhere how it is, so we don't destroy all the future science, take it off the table. So respectful exploration is a really important must for us. And frankly, when we talk about exploration of the moon, when we talk about exploration of Mars, those are discussions that we're having for each mission.
I think those are important conversations, and it's definitely something important to identify, that our exploration is to better understand ourselves, our place in the universe, how we got here. Are we alone? Those are the big fundamental existential crisis level questions that we're doing with missions like Perseverance, and that is the science of astrobiology, which is my absolute favorite science. And let me see if I got a couple. I see a comment here. I see a comment just from this is my other co-host, so I just want to give him a shout out as well. Kavi says he loves the idea of respectful space exploration. I do have a philosophically kind of question for you, and I just would love to hear your thoughts and topic on it. And then I'm drawing this back on my children. I saw that we're going to see the Earthrise moment again with Artemis. Is that going to be broadcasted? And how do you think you're going to feel about that? Because that, we have the blue marble, Earthrise, pale blue dot. There are these iconic pictures. And while we're not seeing it for the first time, we are a generation now that didn't get to see it the first time around and live those experiences. How are you going to feel when you get to see it? I assume it's going to be broadcasted.
Oh, we will definitely broadcast. What I don't know right now is what the orbit configuration is. Remember, when we're coming from behind the moon, there are a lot of things where we're behind, kind of Orion is behind the moon as seen from the Earth. And of course, radio waves don't go around the moon, right? So you have to wait as you come through. But as the Earth, almost by definition, when you see the Earth, you can send a radio signal. So we're surely going to try to take that off, that radio signal, and get it out there. I do think the most beautiful planet we've ever observed, right, in the universe is our own. And it behooves us to look at our planet with admiration every opportunity we get, and especially as we kind of go, to the moon again with Artemis. I think it's very much important to look again back at Earth and recognize both the fragility and the beauty of our own home. And, of course, which relates to everyone we love right here on Earth, right? And kind of our own future and the destiny of our of humanity as a whole. So for me, I think that will be an important moment. I care so much about the Earth. Of course, as part of the programs we run at NASA, we're looking at the Earth, and have provided a lot of the data, which of course are feeding policy discussions worldwide about our climate and about kind of threats, natural disasters, and so forth. So yes, I look forward to that a lot. I noticed I do. I was like, oh wow, it's like wow, that will be incredible, and the cameras will also be better.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, the radio signals still work the same way, just like as an Apollo, but the cameras will definitely be a lot better. Speaking of cameras, since the last time we spoke, we were just talking about the first images of the James Webb Telescope and those pictures of Jupiter that just came out. Wow. I want to follow up on our amazing telescope that is up there now. I loved, obviously, the auroras and the dot and the infrared and all that stuff, but the rings, I was so excited to see the rings because I know you love the Voyager missions as well, and one of the big discoveries with them was that Jupiter had rings, and so I got really, really excited about the rings in that picture. Are you how are you feeling about James Webb so far? Are you thrilled with what it's sending back? I can guarantee you all of us are.
Yeah. I mean, it's another amazing team that is, demonstrating what's possible, right? This is a team, largely speaking, to zeroth order, James Webb Space Telescope works twice as well as we designed it. So kind of, all these risks that I talked about, kind of many of them worked in our favor. So the uncertainties turned out to be, it's actually better than we thought. And so I'm very excited about that. Of course, there's a lot of mission to go. We're doing a lot of learning, but I just want to tell you, kind of unequivocally, this has been the success of our lifetimes in kind of NASA science program and in the agency. We're enormously proud of that. The international and government, academic and commercial team that built that telescope, and we're only just starting. Somebody asked you, when do you think the most important thing will come down? I basically said it's probably years from now. Right now we're making observations that are informed by everything we knew before Webb, and kind of in 2-3 years we're starting to take observations that are informed by what we know we can do, which is very different because we can do a lot more. So that for me is just absolutely incredible. And just like you, I look at those pictures, and every time it's a surprise that gives you a sense of awe.
Yeah, just awe and wonder, and I am always in awe and wonder also of just being in the right time era to be doing science communication and in space science, because there is never an end to what is coming up and what I get to talk about. And to me, that is just such an exciting part about being in this line of work. And even here, I'm at Texas A&M right now doing some training for an astrobiology kind of minded expedition doing core drilling. And so a lot of the people here are geologists and not quite as dialed in with the space industry, but you can immediately draw a parallel to Perseverance, and they're doing core drilling on Mars, and it's and everyone is so engaged here too with any space information I'm dropping on them. And it is. My friend Tom says it is a great time to be in science. We live in a great time of science, and I absolutely agree. I think that the future, everything, it's just starting right now. It's only going to get bigger and better. But in the very near future, we are looking forward to this Artemis launch. I have heard estimates of like 1 million people that might be down there. Can you confirm that?
Well, I think, so we'll see how many people. And there's going to be millions watching, right? But
sure.
Being down here, it may be, I don't know.
I don't know either.
It may be closer. Kind of our initial estimates is closer to 10% of that, like 100,000 or so
100,000.
that have signed up. But, there's many people who are coming that are not telling us. And, if I lived somewhere within driving distance, I would probably bring my family too, and I wouldn't tell NASA. So you and I will learn about this, as we go forward and see this historic moment for so many for so many of us.
And so far, it's looking like everything looks good so far as
Yeah,
for now, for the 29th. Yeah. So
I literally just bumped into the person in charge of SLS and just asked, is there anything that we should worry about? He says, absolutely not. Everything is looking just fine. Of course, we will keep people informed, as I told you, as like there are, many risks and kind of things that we still are checking down the list. If you find something, we'll let you know. I mean, just never lose track of the fact that this is stretching what we can do. So this is not just, another walk in the park and everything will be just fine. If it's fine, it's because many people did exactly what was expected of them or more.
Mm-hmm. And it is Florida weather. So, right, anything could change at any moment, but hopefully it will be launching in this one of these first 3 windows. And it will be such an exciting moment for everyone who is down there, including my friends who are down there, who I'm quite jealous of. I really thought about going, but it would be a fast turnaround from this trip. I want to thank you again so much for doing this and the last live stream. And it is such a pleasure to be able to talk to you because you are so knowledgeable, but you also offer up so much information. You are an excellent communicator because some people give you very short answers and you are very thorough. And it's just such a pleasure to be doing these with you. So thank you so much for joining me. I think that's pretty much it for all the questions that we have. And I don't know, is there any random fact you'd like to offer, the world's your oyster.
Let me tell you one thing I haven't told you yet, but I think we're going to create a new record for kind of life extending from Earth, be away from Earth. So we're actually, as we're going behind the lunar distance and kind of turning around the spacecraft, actually a large fraction of the sun-moon distance, which is, 240 or so 1,000 miles, kind of go a fraction behind it. In Orion, there will be east, and there will be live kind of genomes from Earth down here. And so, kind of, if you look at when is the farthest we've brought life and brought it back, still alive, to the Earth, that will be that record we're going to break as part of that orbit. So I just wanted to let you know. Besides kind of the science, looking at the moon, at the space environment, looking at technologies, one really advanced lander that's kind of trying to crash into the moon and survive and land, built by the Japanese. These kind of biological and kind of experiments will really seek to set a new record. And I just wanted to mention that. I also appreciate what you are doing, communicating science. I think that's absolutely critical, and especially that you share the movie of your beautiful children.
Oh, thank you. Yes, they maybe were kind of forced into it, but but they were good sports, and they do actually. I had to thoroughly explain to my son why the Saturn V wasn't used anymore, because that's his favorite rocket, and he's got a little plushie of it. And I said, well, no, SLS is like the replacement for that to get back to the moon. And he's like, well, what happened to that one? And we had to watch some videos. We had to do a lot of understanding how these rockets work and stuff. And so I think he's understanding it now. But we're gonna end this live broadcast. Thank you to everyone who commented, who watched, and for all of you who are watching after the fact on my YouTube channel. I am Space Case Sarah. I am a NASA JPL Solar System Ambassador, and it is my absolute pleasure to be doing this. And with that, this is the second time I've done this with you where I'm like, I don't really have a good outro for this. So I'll just play my kid's video again on the way out. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And I hope for everybody's benefit in Florida that Artemis is going to go on the 29th.
Yeah. Go Artemis.
Go Artemis.
Not who are going to go are going to be so brave.
I'm excited to see someone walk on the moon.
Maybe someday I can go to space. We
We are
the
the Artemis
generation.
generation.